All right, so get this right. One of the wildest nights in football just went down.
Oh, yeah.
The Ballon Awards.
Ah, okay.
The biggest, most important individual prize in the sport.
Right, right. Like the Oscars, but for kicking a ball around.
Exactly. And for Spain, this year was massive. Think about it. First Spanish Ballon d'Or winner since 1960.
Wow. That's a long time.
But instead of everyone celebrating, we get total drama. Real Madrid, one of those giant, powerful clubs, they decided to boycott the whole ceremony.
What? Seriously? Why?
Because their star player, Vinicius Jr., didn't win. So now everyone's asking, was Real Madrid right to do this, or are they just being sore losers?
Well, that's definitely a bold move. I mean, an event meant to celebrate the best player, and it turns into this big controversy.
Right. It really shows you how much tension there is, even in a sport, right? Like loyalty to your team, ideas about fairness, and how much we care about these individual awards when it's a team sport.
Yeah, yeah, you can't separate those things.
Okay, so let's break it down. The winner was Rodri, Spanish midfielder. He's been absolutely crushing it with Manchester City.
Rodri, yeah. He's a special kind of player.
For sure. So for people who maybe don't follow football super closely, how would you explain what makes Rodri so good?
Okay, so picture this. An orchestra, right? And you've got the conductor up there leading the whole thing. That's Rodri on the field. Every pass he makes, it's like setting the tempo. Where he stands, it breaks up the other team's attacks.
So he's not just about scoring crazy goals himself.
No, no, it's more like he makes the whole team play better, which, I mean, that's kind of what a midfield maestro is supposed to do.
A midfield maestro.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so historic win for Rodri. But then things get messy. Real Madrid says they feel betrayed because the winner's name, it got leaked before the ceremony even happened.
Oh, come on, that's got to be frustrating.
Right. It's like waiting for a big movie to come out and someone just spoils the ending for you.
Totally. That anticipation, the buildup, that's part of what makes it so exciting, is like we're all holding our breath and then someone just goes and lets the air out of the balloon.
And I think for Real Madrid, it wasn't just about ruining the surprise. They saw it as a total lack of respect, not just to Vinicius Jr., but to their whole club.
Yeah, I can see how they'd feel that way. I mean, if the winner was basically decided beforehand, then what's the point of even having this whole ceremony?
And that's where all this talk about transparency and fairness comes in, right?
Absolutely. This whole incident, it really forces us to look at how these awards are decided. Like, should the voting be public? How much influence do the big clubs have? How about the media? Are they pushing certain players? These aren't just football questions, We see this stuff in awards across all kinds of industries.
Okay, so Real Madrid boycotts the event. And, of course, media jumps all over it. Headlines saying Real Madrid are just arrogant, being sore losers, throwing a tantrum.
Well, that was bound to happen.
Right. And France Football, the magazine that runs the whole Ballon d'Or, they even said Real Madrid suffered a moral defeat on top of losing to Barcelona recently.
Ouch. I mean, it's interesting how quickly the whole story shifted. It went from being about a Spanish player making history to being all about Real Madrid's reaction. And I think it shows us how all these different things are connected, rivalries between clubs, how the media shapes things, even national pride. It's all tied up together.
Okay, but to be fair to Real Madrid, they're saying it wasn't just about being sore losers. Their argument is that the leak showed there were problems with how the winner was chosen in the first place. Like the process itself wasn't fair.
Right, right.
And this brings up some bigger questions about how we decide these awards. Like, should we know who voted for who? And how much power do the clubs and the media have to influence things?
Yeah. It's not about just saying, oh, this player won, that player lost. We got to look at the whole system.
Yeah, exactly. And, thinking about Vinicius Jr., he's been incredible for Real Madrid. To have this leak happen and basically say he wasn't even a real contender, I can see how they'd feel disrespected.
For sure. And this feeds into that bigger discussion about individual awards and team sports, right? Are we focusing too much on one player when the whole point is to work together? Do these awards really show who's the best, or are they more about who's popular or who has the best story?
So many layers to this. So to recap, we've got a historic win for Rodri, a controversial boycott by Real Madrid, and a mountain of questions about how we value individual players in a team sport. For anyone listening, not just football fans, what do you think is the main takeaway here?
I think it's a good reminder that even something like sports, which seems pretty straightforward on the surface, it can be really complex underneath. How we see fairness, the power of stories and the media, this tension between one amazing player and the whole team succeeding. It's all there.
It really makes you think. So for our listeners, what do you make of all this? Does this change how you view individual awards? Do you think they matter as much as a team winning?
These are the questions we should all be asking. It's not about finding the one right answer. It's about understanding how complicated it all is and having these conversations.
And that's exactly why we do these deep dives. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.